Talvek had seen many species in his 200 years of service to the Galactic Coalition. His 6 eyes had witnessed the proud Quillari warriors, the swift Manthi scouts, and the powerful Drexian shock troops. But he had never seen humans in combat. That was about to change. The assignment came from Coalition High Command 3 days ago. Observe the human regiment, document their tactics, assess their value to the war effort. The Vryn Empire was pushing hard against Coalition borders, and every species had to prove their worth. Humans were the newest members, barely a decade in the galactic community. Most species whispered that they were too primitive, too soft, too short-lived to matter in a real war. Talvek floated through the airlock of the human transport ship called Indomitable. The artificial gravity pulled at him in an uncomfortable way. Humans preferred stronger gravity than most species. Already, a data point worth noting. A human male waited for him in the corridor. He wore a dark green uniform with strange symbols on his chest. His face was smooth, his eyes dark and sharp. "Observer Talvek," the human said. His voice was deeper than Talvek expected. "I'm Commander Dae Kim. Welcome aboard." Talvek studied the commander with all 6 eyes. The human stood straight, shoulders back. Confidence radiated from him, though Talvek couldn't understand why. The man had only 2 eyes, no natural armor, no claws or fangs. His skin looked painfully thin. One good strike would tear it open, yet he stood like a Drexian champion. "Commander Kim," Talvek replied through his translator, "I am here to observe your unit's combat effectiveness." "Good," Dae said, and started walking. Talvek followed. "We're heading to Epsilon 7, mining colony. The Vryn want it. We're not giving it to them." They passed through the ship's corridors. Human soldiers moved past them, each one nodding to their commander. Talvek noticed things. The humans moved fast, economical. They didn't waste motion. Their eyes tracked everything, alert and aware. These were trained soldiers, he realized, not militia or conscripts. Dae led him to a briefing room where a human female stood studying holographic maps. She turned when they entered. "Observer, this is Captain Hannah Park, my second in command." Hannah nodded to him. She was shorter than Dae, but carried herself with the same unsettling confidence. "Welcome. I hope you can keep up." Talvek's translator caught something in her tone. Was that humor? A challenge? He couldn't tell. The briefing was straightforward. Epsilon 7 had 3,000 civilian workers. The Vryn were sending a battle group to take it. Coalition fleet support was 2 days away. Dae's regiment of 800 humans would hold until then. 800 against a Vryn battle group? Talvek asked. His voice crystals chimed with disbelief. "That is suicide." "That's Tuesday," said a voice from the doorway. A younger human female entered. She had sharp eyes and a scar across her jaw. "Lieutenant Mina Choi, I run 3rd Platoon." Talvek watched as more human officers filed in. They joked with each other. They smiled. They showed no fear at the impossible odds. This made no sense. Every species knew fear. It was the most basic survival instinct. Fear kept you alive. After the briefing, Talvek followed Dae through the ship's lower decks. They entered the armory. The sight made Talvek stop. Hundreds of humans sat among their weapons. They cleaned rifles, checked armor seals, sharpened knives. But more than that, they talked. They laughed. Someone had connected a music device, and strange rhythmic sounds filled the room. Several humans moved their bodies to the music while loading ammunition. "What are they doing?" Talvek asked. "Getting ready," Dae said simply. Talvek watched a young human male sharpen a combat knife while singing along to the music. Another female checked her rifle and made a joke that caused 3 others to laugh loudly. This was wrong. This was all wrong. Soldiers before battle should be quiet, focused, mentally preparing for death. "Commander," Talvek said carefully, "your soldiers seem..." Undisciplined. Day looked at him with those dark eyes. They're loose, not undisciplined. There's a difference. Talvek didn't understand the difference. He approached a human soldier, a male with broad shoulders who was fitting armor plates to his chest. "Are you afraid?" Talvek asked directly. The soldier looked up. His eyes were calm. "Sure, fear's useful, keeps you sharp. But you could die tomorrow." "Could die today," the soldier said. "Could have died yesterday, still here." He finished sealing his armor. "I'm Sergeant Wu Han. You're the observer, right?" "Yes." "Well, observe this." Wu stood and gestured to the room. "We're afraid, every one of us. But fear doesn't get to drive. We drive. Fear just comes along for the ride." Talvek recorded this in his datapad. The words made sense individually, but not together. How could one be afraid and not let fear control them? Fear was a command from the survival center of the brain. You couldn't just ignore it. That evening, Talvek attended the human meal period they called dinner. The food smelled strange. Humans ate a shocking variety of items. They sat in groups, talking loudly, telling stories. Talvek noted that many stories were about previous battles, previous victories. They were building confidence through shared memory. A young female soldier sat next to him. "You're the bug guy, right?" "No offense." "I am Quillari, not insectoid, but I take no offense." "You are?" "Yuna Lee. Private first class." She ate something called rice with quick, efficient movements. "So, what do you think of us so far?" "I am confused," Talvek admitted. Yuna laughed. It was a bright sound. "Yeah, we get that a lot. The galaxy thinks we're weird. You are fragile. You have short lifespans. You lack natural weapons. Yet you act as if you are apex predators." "Maybe we are," Yuna said. She finished her meal and stood. "Maybe that's exactly what we are." That night, Talvek couldn't rest. He reviewed his notes, trying to form a coherent picture. Humans were biological contradictions, weak but confident, afraid but aggressive, short-lived but seemingly unconcerned with death. The answer hit him at 0300 hours. Humans didn't think like other species. They knew they were fragile. They knew they could die, and they had decided it didn't matter. They had made a choice to fight anyway. This was either brilliant or insane. Talvek couldn't decide which. The alarm sirens screamed through the ship at 0530 hours. Talvek rushed to the command deck. Red lights flashed. The holographic display showed Vryn ships dropping out of hyperspace. "All hands to battle stations." Day's voice echoed through the ship. His tone was calm, almost casual. "Looks like they're early. Let's give them a proper welcome." Talvek expected panic. He expected humans running to escape pods or defensive positions. Instead, he watched them run toward the armory. They were running toward the weapons, toward the fight, toward the enemy. Captain Hana appeared next to Day, already armored. 3rd and 5th platoons are ready for deployment. Wu's squad wants the forward position. "Give it to them," Day said. Talvek felt something he hadn't felt in decades. A chill ran through his crystalline thought centers. He watched the humans prepare to face an enemy that had crushed a dozen species, and they were smiling. "Observer," Dai said, turning to him. "Stay close to me. You wanted to see humans in combat. You're about to get your wish." The ship shuddered as it entered Epsilon 7's atmosphere. Through the viewport, Talvek saw Vryn dropships descending like black rain. The battle was beginning, and the humans were ready. The first Vryn warrior that Talvek saw up close was 9 feet tall. Its exoskeleton gleamed black under the artificial lights of Epsilon 7. 4 arms ended in razor-sharp claws. Its mandibles clicked together with sounds that made Talvek's translator scream static. This was death on legs. This was what had broken the Threxian Confederation in 6 months. Talvik watched from the command bunker's observation window. The Vryn were landing in waves, their ships punching through the atmosphere like bullets. The mining colony's defensive turrets fired, but there were too many targets. For every ship destroyed, 3 more landed. Commander Day stood at the tactical display, his face calm. He moved holographic markers with quick gestures. Hana, pull 2nd platoon back to the refinery. Mina, take 3rd platoon to the eastern ridge. Wu, you're going to love this. Try me. Sergeant Wu's voice crackled through the comm. See that landing zone, grid, Charlie 7? I need you to remove the Vryn from it. How permanently? Extremely. Talvik heard human laughter through the comm. They were laughing. The enemy was landing, and humans were laughing. Wu's squad is moving to intercept, Hana reported. He's taking 12 soldiers. 12? Talvik's voice crystals chimed with alarm. There are 60 Vryn warriors in that zone. 63, according to scanners, Day corrected. He didn't sound concerned. Talvik pulled up the tactical feed from Wu's helmet camera. He watched the squad move through the colony's industrial sector. They didn't take cover. They didn't advance slowly. They ran. They actually ran toward the enemy position. This is madness, Talvik said. This is humanity, Day replied. The feed showed Wu's squad reaching the landing zone's perimeter. The Vryn were forming up, preparing their assault formation. Standard Vryn doctrine was perfect. Overwhelming force, coordinated strikes, no mercy. Then Wu gave the order Talvik would never forget. Contact front. Going loud in 3, 2, 1, break them. The humans opened fire. Talvik had seen many weapons in the galaxy, plasma rifles, particle beams, molecular disruptors. But human weapons were different. They used chemical propellants to launch metal projectiles at supersonic speeds. Primitive technology, most species said. Outdated. Those species had never seen what those projectiles did to a Vryn warrior. The first wave of fire took down 8 Vryn in 2 seconds. The warriors had excellent armor, but human bullets found the joints, the gaps, the weak points. The humans had studied Vryn anatomy. They knew exactly where to shoot. But what happened next made Talvik's 6 eyes widen in disbelief. Wu's squad didn't hold position. They advanced. Into the Vryn formation, into melee range. "What are they doing?" Talvik shouted. "They'll be slaughtered." "Watch," Day said quietly. Private Una Lee appeared on the helmet cam feed. She sprinted past Wu, firing her rifle until it clicked empty. A Vryn warrior, massive and terrifying, lunged at her with all 4 claws extended. Talvik wanted to look away. The girl was about to die. Una dropped and slid under the Vryn's strike. As she slid, she drew a vibroblade from her thigh. The blade hummed with high-frequency oscillations. She drove it upward into the Vryn's throat joint, the one weak spot in their neck armor. The warrior collapsed. Una rolled to her feet, blood on her armor from the Vryn's dying spray. She was breathing hard, and she was smiling. "First blood!" she shouted. Other humans echoed her cry. The Vryn formation broke. Not because they were losing, but because nothing in their combat doctrine prepared them for this. Prey didn't charge, defenders didn't attack, small forces didn't engage superior numbers. Humans did all 3. Corporal Jin Seo appeared on another feed. He was firing his rifle from the hip, walking forward into plasma fire. A bolt hit his shoulder armor, scorching it black. He didn't stop. He didn't even flinch. He just laughed and fired again. "Jin, you're hit," someone called over the comm. "I'm aware," Jin shouted back. "Doesn't change the plan." Talvik checked Jin's bio readouts. The impact had cracked 2 ribs. The heat had caused 2nd-degree burns. The human should be in shock. Instead, his combat stimulant levels were through the ceiling. Adrenaline, the humans called it. A chemical their bodies produced that temporarily suppressed pain and increased strength. It was biological insanity. Pain existed to warn of injury. Ignoring it could cause permanent damage. But humans had evolved to do exactly that when hunting or being hunted. The Vryn were retreating. Actually, retreating. Talvek watched his tactical display in stunned silence. A force of 63 elite warriors was pulling back from 12 humans. "Observer!" Hana's voice broke his shock. "You should see this!" She brought up another feed. It showed the colony's southern approach where Lieutenant Mina Choi's platoon held the eastern ridge. 200 Vryn warriors were advancing up the slope. Standard assault pattern, textbook tactics. Mina's platoon numbered 40 soldiers. "They're going to be overrun," Talvek said. "Watch," Hana repeated Day's earlier word. The Vryn climbed the ridge. Mina let them come. Closer, closer. Talvek wanted to shout at her to fire. The enemy was almost at optimal striking range. "Now!" Mina's voice was ice-cold. The ridge exploded. The humans had mined it. Explosives tore through the Vryn formation, sending warriors tumbling down the slope. Before the survivors could recover, Mina's platoon opened fire from prepared positions. But they didn't stay in those positions. After 30 seconds of sustained fire, they moved. Not back to safety, forward, down the ridge, into the stunned Vryn forces. "They're pursuing?" Talvek couldn't believe it. "The Vryn are falling back and the humans are chasing them?" "Persistence predators," Day said. His eyes never left the tactical display. "That's what the xenobiologists called humans when we joined the coalition. On Earth, our ancestors hunted by chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. We're built to keep going, to never stop." Talvek watched feed after feed. Human soldiers fighting with a ferocity that defied logic. They took injuries that would disable any other species and kept fighting. They advanced when they should retreat. They attacked when they should defend. A young human male, barely 20 years old by his biodata, had his helmet torn off by a Vryn claw. The warrior reared back for the killing strike. The human head butted it, actually used his own skull as a weapon. The impact stunned the Vryn long enough for the human to draw his sidearm and empty the magazine into its face. "This is wrong," Talvek said. "This shouldn't work. The Vryn are bigger, stronger, better armored. They have superior numbers. They should be winning." Captain Hana looked at him with those dark human eyes. "Should doesn't matter in combat. What matters is will, and humans have more will than we have sense." The battle raged for 6 hours. 6 hours of continuous combat. Talvek watched his chronometer in disbelief. Most species needed rest after 1 hour of intense fighting. Mental fatigue alone would make them ineffective. Not humans. They rotated their soldiers, yes, but in shifts so short that other species would call it pointless. 4 soldiers would fall back for water and ammunition while 4 others took their place. Then they'd return to the line. No rest, no downtime, just continuous, relentless fighting. Private Kang Min had been in active combat for 5 hours straight. Talvek pulled up his biodata. Heart rate elevated but steady. Respiration high but controlled. Stress hormones at dangerous levels, but the human kept fighting with precision and focus. "How?" Talvek asked aloud. "How are they doing this?" A human medic working nearby looked up. She had blood on her gloves, not her own. "You get used to it," she said. Her name tag read, Specialist Sue Park. "Besides, stopping isn't an option. People are counting on us." Talvek watched her return to treating a wounded soldier. The injured human had taken plasma fire to the leg. The wound was severe. He should be sedated, transported to medical. Instead, Sue injected him with something, applied a compression bandage, and sent him back to his squad. "He can't fight with that injury," Talvek protested. "Tell him that," Sue said. "He'll laugh at you." By the 8th hour, the Vryn assault was faltering. Not because they were defeated, but because they were confused. Vryn tactical doctrine had no protocols for an enemy that fought like this. They pulled back to regroup. Commander Day allowed them to retreat. He didn't pursue. Talvek saw the wisdom in this. The humans had won this engagement, but they were exhausted. Except they weren't. Tired? Yes. Wounded? Absolutely. But as Talvek walked through the human defensive positions, he saw soldiers checking weapons, reinforcing barriers, preparing for the next attack. They sang songs, they told jokes, they encouraged each other. "Good fight," Wu said to his squad. "They'll be back. But now they know. Now they understand." "Understand what?" Talvek asked. Wu looked at him, his face dirty and tired, but his eyes bright. "That humans don't break easy, and we don't quit at all." That night, Talvek updated his report. He struggled to find words that would make sense to the coalition analysts. How could he explain what he'd seen? How could he make them understand? In the end, he wrote simply, "The humans fought today. The Vryn learned to fear them. Tomorrow they will learn to fear them more." 72 hours, 3 full days. That was how long the siege had lasted when Talvek realized he had stopped understanding time in the human way. The coalition fleet was delayed. "Solar storms," the message said. 2 more days until support arrived. Commander Day read the message, nodded once, and deleted it. He didn't tell his soldiers about the delay. He didn't need to. They were already preparing to fight forever if necessary. Talvek's people, the Quelari, needed 8 hours of rest every cycle. It was biological law. The brain required it. The body demanded it. Without it, a Quelari would become slow, unfocused, useless in combat. Talvek had been awake for 3 days straight, documenting the humans. He was starting to hallucinate. His 6 eyes couldn't focus properly. His thought crystals felt cloudy. He needed rest. Then he saw Private Kang Min walk past. The young human had been in active combat for 36 hours. Not 36 hours of sitting in a bunker. 36 hours of fighting, moving, shooting, surviving. His armor was scorched black in places. He had a bandage on his left arm. But he was walking to his position for another shift. Talvek's translator must be broken. He must have misread the combat logs. No biological organism could do this. "Private Kang," Talvek called out, his voice crystals chiming weakly. Kang stopped and turned. His face was covered in dust and dried sweat, dark circles under his eyes. But those eyes were alert. "Yeah, observer?" "How are you still functioning?" Talvek asked. "You should be unconscious. Your body should have forced you to rest." Kang smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was something else, something that had weight behind it. "My family comes from a place on Earth called the Northern Mountains. My great-great-grandfather once walked 40 kilometers through snow with a bullet in his leg. Got home, removed the bullet himself, then went back out to finish the hunt because his family needed food." Talvek stared. "That's impossible." "Tell that to my great-great-grandfather," Kang said. "He did it anyway. So yeah, I can do 36 hours. He's watching. I won't let him down. He's dead. Doesn't matter. He's still watching." Kang walked away, leaving Talvek trying to process this. Humans carried their dead with them. Not physically, but in memory. Those memories pushed them beyond what their bodies should allow. It was cultural evolution supplementing biological evolution. Talvek had never seen anything like it. He found Captain Hannah in the command center. She had been awake even longer than Kang, coordinating the defense. Her hands moved across the tactical display with steady precision. No shake, no hesitation. "Captain," Talvek said, "when did you last sleep?" "Define sleep," Hannah replied, not looking away from her work. "Unconscious rest state, neural recovery period." "Then no, I don't sleep during battles." She highlighted 3 sections on the map. "The Vryn are probing our western flank. They're learning our patterns. I'm rotating squad positions every 4 hours to prevent prediction." "But you need rest. Your efficiency must be dropping." Now Hana looked at him. Her eyes were bloodshot but focused. "Observer, do you know what my specialty was before the military?" "No." "Emergency medicine. I once worked a 48-hour shift during a plague outbreak. Treated 300 patients. Lost 12. I remember every one of their faces." She turned back to the display. "This is easier than that. At least here, I can shoot back." Talvek was beginning to understand something fundamental about humans. They had come from a world that tried to kill them. A death world, the galaxy called it. Extreme weather, predators, diseases, natural disasters. Humans had survived all of it through one simple trait. They refused to give up. The medical bay was full. Specialist Sue Park moved between wounded soldiers with mechanical efficiency. She had been working non-stop since the battle began. Talvek watched her treat a soldier with shrapnel wounds, inject another with antibiotics, and comfort a third who was in shock from seeing his friend die. She did all three things in under 2 minutes. "Don't you have any other medical staff?" Talvek asked. "Had 4, Sue said, cleaning blood from her hands. "2 are wounded. 1 is dead. Just me now." "You should rest." "I should," she agreed. "But if I rest, who treats them?" She gestured to the 20 wounded soldiers waiting for care. "I'll rest when everyone's patched up, or when I collapse, whichever comes first." She went back to work. Talvek noted that her hands didn't shake even slightly. 3 days without sleep, and her hands were steady as stone. The Vryn attacked again at hour 84. They had learned from the first battle. This time they used different tactics. They split their forces, attacked from multiple angles, tried to overwhelm the human defenses through confusion. It didn't work. Lieutenant Mina Choi coordinated the eastern defense with calm precision. "3rd Squad, shift left. 5th Squad, prepare for flanking maneuver. Woo, they're going to push hard at your position. You know what to do." "Make them regret it." "Got it." The Vryn unleashed something new. A sound weapon. Frequencies that triggered the fear centers of most species' brains. It paralyzed the Manthi warriors. It made Drexian troops run in panic. It should have destroyed human morale. For the first 10 minutes, it worked. Talvek saw human soldiers freeze, their eyes wide with terror. The Vryn pressed forward, sensing victory. Then something changed. Private Una Lee started singing, a loud, defiant song in her native language. Talvek's translator struggled with it, but the emotion came through clearly. Anger, determination, defiance. Other humans joined her. Soon half the regiment was singing while fighting. The fear frequency couldn't penetrate the sound of their voices. More than that, the shared singing seemed to strengthen them. Their movements became more coordinated, their fire more accurate. The Vryn had never encountered anything like it. They had broken 40 species with that fear weapon, but humans, once they understood it, adapted to it, overcame it, used their own cultural response to nullify it. Lieutenant Hyun Lee actually laughed when the fear frequency intensified. Through the comm, Talvek heard him say, "My ex-wife's voice was scarier than this. Keep firing." The human capacity for humor in the face of death baffled Talvek. Every other species became grim during combat. Humans made jokes, they laughed, they used humor as armor against fear. By hour 90, Talvek realized the Vryn were no longer trying to win. They were trying to survive. The humans had turned defense into offense without ever leaving their positions. They had made the enemy afraid to attack. Supplies were running low. Food was rationed. Water was recycled to levels that would be dangerous for most species. Ammunition was down to 60%. Medical supplies were almost gone. Commander Day called a briefing. His officers gathered, all of them looking tired but unbroken. Talvek attended, documenting everything. "Coalition support is still 2 days out," Day said. "We're low on everything. The Vryn know this. They're going to push hard, try to break us before help arrives." Let them try, Sergeant Wu said. Several others nodded agreement. I'm implementing Protocol Winter, Day continued. Talvek's translator didn't recognize the term. What is Protocol Winter? Human historical reference, Captain Hana explained. A siege on Earth. The defenders ran out of food. They ate leather from their boots to survive. They held out for 9 months. We're calling this Protocol Winter because we're going to outlast them no matter what it takes. You'd eat your boots? Talvek asked, horrified. If necessary, Day said. But hopefully it won't come to that. We still have ration bars. They taste like boots anyway. The humans laughed. They were starving and exhausted, and they laughed. That night, Talvek found Corporal Jinseo on watch. The young human sat at his post, eyes scanning the darkness beyond the colony's walls. He had been wounded twice in the last 3 days. Both wounds were bandaged but not properly treated. Medical supplies were being saved for the most critical injuries. Doesn't it hurt? Talvek asked. Jin shrugged. Everything hurts. You stop noticing after a while. But why continue? You could be evacuated. You've done enough. Enough? Jin looked at him. Observer, there's no such thing as enough. Not when people are counting on you, not when your squad needs you. He turned back to his watch. My grandfather told me something before I enlisted. He said, pain is temporary, but the shame of giving up lasts forever. I won't give up. Can't. Talvek sat next to him in silence. Around them, the colony was quiet. Humans rested in 4-hour shifts. Even in sleep, they kept their weapons close, ready to wake and fight at any moment. He pulled up his personal logs and began writing. Day 3 of observation. I have witnessed what others would call impossible. Humans don't merely fight, they endure. When other species would break, they bend. When biology says stop, their culture says continue. They carry their ancestors with them. They fight for each other. They refuse to acknowledge defeat even when logic demands it. He paused, looking at the wounded, exhausted humans around him. They should not be winning. But they are. Not through superior strength or technology, through will, through stubborn, relentless, impossible will. The Vryn attacked again at dawn. They came in waves, trying to overwhelm the tired defenders. The humans met them, bloody, exhausted, unbroken. And the Vryn, for the first time in their long history of conquest, began to wonder if victory was possible against a species that simply refused to lose. The message arrived during hour 96. Talvek watched Commander Day's face as he read it. For the first time in 4 days, the human's expression changed. Not fear, something else. Recognition. They're sending the death sworn, Day said quietly. The command center went silent. Even the humans, who had joked through everything else, stopped talking. Captain Hana pulled up the incoming ship signatures on the tactical display. 3 heavy dropships, distinctive energy patterns. How many? She asked. Standard deployment, 300. Talvek felt his thought crystals freeze. The Deathsworn. The Vryn Empire's elite warriors. Genetically enhanced, psychologically conditioned, perfectly trained. In 200 years, they had broken 47 species. Entire civilizations had surrendered rather than face them. Observer, Day said, turning to him, you should evacuate. There's still time. I am here to observe, Talvek replied. His voice crystals chimed with a fear he couldn't hide. What will you do? Day looked at his tactical display. His regiment was down to 600 effective soldiers. They were exhausted, low on ammunition, running on willpower alone. Against 300 Deathsworn, the mathematics were clear. This was the end. We'll do what humans always do, Day said. We'll fight, and we'll make them pay for every meter. You cannot win this. Probably not, Day agreed. But we can make sure they lose too. Talvek didn't understand the difference. The briefing was short. Commander Day explained the situation to his officers. The Death Sworn were landing in Grid Sector Delta 9, 6 kilometers from the colony. Standard Death Sworn tactics. They would advance in perfect formation, overwhelming any defense through superior skill and coordination. "I'm not giving them the satisfaction of a defensive battle," Day said. "Sergeant Junho Nam, I need volunteers for a forward assault." Lieutenant Mina's voice was sharp. "Commander, that's suicide." "Yes," Day agreed, "which is why I'm asking for volunteers." Every hand went up. Every single human in the room volunteered for a mission they knew was death. Talvek's 6 eyes couldn't process it. This defied every survival instinct in every species he'd ever studied. Dai selected 30 soldiers. "The rest hold the colony. Hana, you have command if I don't come back." "When you come back," Hana corrected. "When," Day agreed with a small smile. The chosen soldiers prepared their equipment in silence. This was different from before. No jokes, no laughter. They understood what they were doing. This was a sacrifice play. They would hit the Death Sworn hard, disrupt their formation, maybe buy the colony a few more hours. Talvek watched them check their weapons with ritual precision. Private Rena Bayek loaded her rifle, then pulled out a small piece of paper and wrote something on it. She folded it carefully and placed it in a sealed pouch on her armor. "What is that?" Talvek asked. "A letter," Rena said. "For my family, in case I don't come back. You know you won't survive this." "Probably not," she agreed. She finished her weapons check. "But someone has to do it, and I volunteered." "Why?" Rena looked at him with dark eyes that held no fear. "Because if we don't, everyone dies. If we do, maybe the others have a chance. That's worth it." This was the human calculation. Not survival for self, survival for the group, the tribe, the species. They would sacrifice themselves if it meant others lived. Sergeant Junho gathered his squad. They formed a circle, placing their hands together in the center. They spoke words in their language. Talvek's translator caught some of it. Promises, remembrances, affirmations of brotherhood. Then they armed themselves and moved out. Talvek followed, recording everything. He had to understand this. He had to document why humans would walk knowingly into death. The march to Delta 9 took 40 minutes. The humans moved quickly, but didn't run. They conserved energy. Talvek noticed they were singing softly, an old song from Earth. His translator provided the meaning, a song about soldiers going to war, knowing they might not return, but going anyway, because others needed them. The Death Sworn were visible from 2 kilometers away. Their formation was perfect, 300 warriors moving as one organism. Their armor was matte black, absorbing light. Their weapons hummed with deadly power. They were death incarnate. Commander Day watched them through his scope. Tactical assessment. They're not expecting resistance this far out. They think we'll huddle in the colony and wait for them. A reasonable assumption, Junho said. Yes, let's prove them wrong. The attack plan was insane. The humans would split into 3 teams. They would hit the Death Sworn formation from 3 sides simultaneously, using the terrain for cover. They would make the Death Sworn think the force was larger than it was. They would exploit the one weakness the Death Sworn had. They were trained to fight defensive positions, not aggressive guerrilla tactics. Remember, Day said, we're not trying to win. We're trying to teach them that humans are dangerous. Make them hesitate. Make them afraid. Make them remember this day. The humans spread out. Talvek stayed with Day's group. His recording equipment would document this final battle. Maybe the coalition would learn something from it. The first strike came from the east. Sergeant Wu's team opened fire on the Death Sworn flank. The elite warriors reacted instantly, turning to face the threat. Their return fire was devastating. Wu's team scattered, using every rock and ridge for cover. But they had done their job. The Deathsworn formation shifted to face east. That's when Junho hit them from the north. Explosives tore through the Deathsworn ranks. Not enough to destroy the formation, but enough to create chaos. Enough to make them react. The Deathsworn split their forces, half turning to face this new threat. "Now," Day said. His team rushed from the west. 30 humans charging 300 Deathsworn. It should have been slaughter. It was, but not the way Talvek expected. The humans used every dirty trick they'd learned in 4 days of combat. They used smoke grenades, flashbangs, sonic disruptors. They moved in ways the Deathsworn couldn't predict. They didn't fight like soldiers following doctrine. They fought like hunters who had studied their prey. Private Rena Beck managed to get inside the Deathsworn formation. She had explosives strapped to her armor. Talvek saw her smile once before she triggered them. The explosion took out a Deathsworn commander and 8 elite warriors. Her last words over the comm were the lyrics to an old Earth song. She sang while the world exploded around her. The Deathsworn formation wavered. For the first time in 2 centuries, their perfect coordination broke. They had never faced an enemy that would sacrifice themselves like this. Every species fought to survive. Humans fought to protect others, even at the cost of their own lives. Corporal Jin Seo was wounded in the leg but kept firing. A Deathsworn warrior closed on his position, weapons ready for the kill. Jin didn't retreat. He drew a combat knife and lunged forward, actually attacking the warrior that outweighed him by 100 kilograms. The Deathsworn was so surprised by the aggression that its counterstrike was slow. Jin got his knife into the warrior's weapon arm, causing it to drop its rifle. Then Jin's squad hit the warrior from 2 other angles. All around the battlefield, similar scenes played out. Humans turning defense into attack. Humans sacrificing themselves to save others. Humans fighting with a ferocity that defied their physical limitations. But they were dying. Talvek watched his display as blue markers winked out one by one. 12 humans down. 15. 20. Then something changed. The Deathsworn started to retreat. Not a full withdrawal, but a tactical pullback. They were trying to re-establish their formation, to get distance from the humans who fought at close range. "They're afraid!" Captain Hana's voice came through the comm from the colony. "The Deathsworn are pulling back. They've never done that before." "Press them," Day shouted. "Don't let them regroup." The remaining humans surged forward. There were only 18 left from the original 30. They were wounded, exhausted, running on empty. But they chased the Deathsworn. They actually chased the galaxy's most feared warriors. Sergeant Junho's voice carried over the comm, fierce and proud. "They're not used to prey that fights back. Let's teach them what happens when prey becomes predator." Talvek watched in amazement as the Deathsworn formation continued to break. These warriors had conquered dozens of worlds. They had never known defeat, but now they were experiencing something new: fear. The humans had made them afraid. The battle lasted another hour. When it ended, only 7 humans remained standing. 23 had died, including Private Rena. But the Deathsworn had lost 60 warriors, 60 of their elite. And more importantly, they had lost something they'd never lost before: their confidence. The surviving humans limped back to the colony. They carried their dead with them. Every single body, no one left behind. Commander Day had a deep wound in his side, but he walked on his own. Sergeant Junho had lost an eye, but was already joking about getting an eye patch. Corporal Jin had to be carried, his leg too damaged to walk, but he was conscious and singing. They had lost. In every tactical sense, they had lost. 2/3 casualties, minimal damage to enemy forces. But as Talvek watched the Deathsworn regroup in the distance, he saw something unprecedented. The elite warriors were hesitating. Their advance had stopped. For the first time in their history, they were waiting, reconsidering, afraid of what the humans might do next. "We didn't win," Day said, reading Talvek's thoughts. But we taught them something important. What? Talvek asked. That humans are dangerous. Not because we're strong or numerous or technologically advanced, because we're willing to do what they won't. We're willing to sacrifice everything to protect what we love. That night, the Death-Sworn didn't attack. They waited for dawn, for reinforcements, for new orders. They had been taught to fear. And across the galaxy, a transmission went out from the Vryn command. For the first time in 200 years, the Death-Sworn were requesting backup. The universe had learned something new. Humans were not to be underestimated. The Coalition fleet arrived 12 hours after the Death-Sworn retreated. Talvek watched the massive ships drop from hyperspace, their weapons charging, ready for battle. They were too late. The battle was over, but not in the way anyone expected. Epsilon 7 still stood. The mining colony's walls were scorched and broken in places, but the human flag still flew above the command center. 600 humans had held against 5,000 Vryn warriors and 300 Death-Sworn. The mathematics said it was impossible. Humans had never cared much for mathematics. Admiral Kethvar of the Drexian fleet made contact first. His massive form appeared on the command screen, his 4 arms crossed in a gesture of respect. Commander Day Kim, we expected to find ruins. Instead, we find victory. Explain. Day looked tired. 4 days of combat had left marks on his face, dark circles under his eyes, new scars, but his voice was steady. We held the line, Admiral. Nothing more. Nothing more? Kethvar's voice rumbled with disbelief. The Death-Sworn have withdrawn. They're requesting evacuation. In 200 years, they have never retreated. What did you do to them? We fought, Day said simply. They learned we don't quit easy. Talvek watched as Coalition medical ships landed. Their doctors rushed to treat the wounded humans, expecting trauma centers full of dying soldiers. What they found confused them. Private Una Lee sat on a crate, her armor still on, eating a ration bar while a medic tried to examine the plasma burns on her shoulder. I'm fine, she kept saying. Check the others first. The medic, a Quillari like Talvek, scanned her. You have second-degree burns, a cracked rib, and your stress hormones are at toxic levels. You need immediate treatment. After I finish eating, Una said, I'm hungry. This scene repeated throughout the colony. Humans with injuries that would hospitalize other species were walking around, helping with repairs, refusing treatment until others were seen first. The Coalition medics had never encountered anything like it. Talvek compiled the casualty reports. The numbers were staggering. Of the 800 humans who began the battle, 480 were wounded. 184 were dead. By any military standard, the regiment was destroyed. But Commander Day was already reorganizing his survivors into new squads. Captain Hana was planning defensive improvements for when they deployed next. Sergeant Wu, despite having lost half his original team, was training replacement soldiers. They weren't broken. They were already preparing for the next fight. Admiral Kethvar came down to the colony personally. The huge Drexian warrior walked through the human positions, his eyes wide. He had fought in 100 battles across 50 years. He had never seen anything like this. How many did you lose? He asked Day. 184, Day replied. That's 23% casualties. Most species would collapse at 10%. We're not most species. The Admiral stopped at a memorial the humans had built. They had placed stones in a circle, one for each fallen soldier. On each stone was a name and a small personal item, a photo, a patch, a piece of jewelry. You remember them all? Kethvar asked. Every one, Day said. Private Rena Beck, who sang while she died saving 20 others. Corporal San Quan, who held a position alone for 3 hours. Lieutenant Bo Young, who dragged 4 wounded soldiers to safety before a plasma bolt took him. He touched one of the stones gently. We remember. Always. This was the human way, Talvek realized. They carried their dead with them. Those deaths weren't meaningless. They were fuel, motivation, inspiration. Each fallen soldier made the survivors fight harder. Talvek spent the next 2 days interviewing human soldiers for his final report. Each conversation added pieces to a puzzle he was finally beginning to understand. He found Captain Hana working on defensive plans. She had been awake for over 100 hours. "Captain, how did you do it?" he asked. "Do what?" "Win. You shouldn't have won." Hana stopped working and looked at him. "Observer, you're thinking about this wrong. We didn't win because we were stronger or smarter or better equipped. We won because losing wasn't an option." "But you could have died." "Yes, but if we ran, everyone would have died. Thousands of civilians, our brothers and sisters in arms. So we stayed. We fought. We endured." She turned back to her plans. "My grandmother survived a war on Earth that killed millions. She told me once that humans are like bamboo. We bend in the storm. We look like we'll break. But when the storm passes, we're still standing." Talvek found Corporal Jin in the medical bay. His leg was in a regeneration cast, but he was doing exercises with his upper body. "Corporal, why did you continue fighting when you were wounded?" Jin smiled. "Because my squad needed me. Because stopping wasn't going to make the pain go away. And because my father always said that pain is just your body telling you you're still alive. As long as I could feel pain, I could fight." In the armory, Sergeant Wu was teaching new replacement soldiers, young humans who had just arrived with the Coalition fleet. "The Vryn are tough," he told them. "The Deathsworn are tougher. But being tough isn't enough. You have to be willing. Willing to stand when others run. Willing to fight when your body says stop. Willing to die so others can live. That's what makes a human soldier." The young soldiers listened with wide eyes. They looked afraid. Good, Talvek thought. Fear would keep them alive. But he also saw determination in those eyes. They would be afraid, and they would fight anyway. Medic Sue Park was treating wounded soldiers when Talvek found her. She had dark circles under her eyes and moved more slowly than before, but her hands were still steady. "Specialist, you worked for 4 days without rest. How?" Sue looked at the wounded soldiers around her. "Because they needed me. It's that simple. Every soldier I save gets to go home, gets to see family again, gets to live. How could I stop when that's at stake?" "But you're one person. You can't save everyone." "No," she agreed. "But I can save the next one, and then the one after that, and the one after that. You don't think about saving everyone. You think about saving this one person right now. Then you do it again." Talvek understood now. Humans didn't see the impossible task. They saw the next step, the next soldier to save, the next position to hold, the next enemy to stop. They broke down the impossible into tiny pieces and conquered each piece one at a time. Lieutenant Hyun Lee was back on watch despite a concussion. Talvek asked him about the fear frequency weapon. "How did you overcome it?" Hyun laughed. "Overcome? I didn't overcome it. I was scared out of my mind. But fear is just a feeling. It's not a command. My grandmother used to say that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's deciding that something else is more important than fear. My squad mates are more important. The mission is more important. So I felt the fear and fought anyway." Every human had a story. Every human had a reason. But the common thread was always the same. They fought for each other. Not for glory or conquest or ideology. For the person next to them. For the people counting on them. For their family, their friends, their species. It was the most powerful motivation Talvek had ever encountered. He completed his final report in the command center. Admiral Kethvar wanted it transmitted to Coalition High Command immediately. Talvek had written hundreds of reports in his career. None of them felt as important as this one. He titled it simply, The Human Paradox, an analysis of humanity's combat effectiveness. The key findings poured out of him. Humans are physically inferior to most combat species. They are weaker than Drexians, slower than Manthi, less armored than Vryn. Their technology is adequate, but not exceptional. By every measurable metric, they should be average soldiers at best. Yet they are exceptional. Not despite their weaknesses, but because of them. Humans know they are fragile. This knowledge makes them fight smarter, harder, and with greater determination than species that rely on natural advantages. Human culture is their greatest weapon. They carry their ancestors' memories. They fight for abstract concepts like honor and duty. They bond with their combat units with an intensity that exceeds even pack species. A human will die to save a squad mate they've known for days. Their biology is adapted for persistence. Humans evolved as persistence hunters on a death world. They can fight longer, with less rest, than any species I have studied. Pain and exhaustion affect them, but they have cultural and biological mechanisms to continue functioning despite these factors. Most critically, humans possess what I term adaptive stubbornness. When presented with an impossible situation, they don't surrender. They adapt. They improvise. They find a way forward. This isn't stupidity or ignorance of danger. It's a conscious choice to attempt the impossible rather than accept defeat. The Deathsworn retreated because humans taught them fear, not through superior force, but through relentless aggression in the face of certain death. Humans fight like cornered predators. They fight like they have nothing to lose. They fight with a ferocity that makes even elite warriors hesitate. My recommendation: the Coalition's greatest asset is not humanity's technology or numbers, it is their will. Humans are force multipliers. Where they fight, others fight harder. Where they stand, others refuse to retreat. They make the impossible seem achievable by achieving it. Final assessment: humans are allies today. The Coalition must ensure they remain allies. A species this dangerous, this determined, this willing to sacrifice everything for their goals must never become our enemy. Talvek read through the report one final time. Then he added a personal note, something that would probably be removed by Coalition censors, but needed to be said. I watched humans advance into battle and understood why the galaxy shudders before them. Not because they are fearless, they are deeply afraid. Not because they are strong, they are fragile and know it. Not because they are certain of victory, they often expect to die. They advance anyway, they fight anyway, they endure anyway. I have studied war for 200 years. I have never seen anything like humanity. They are prey animals that became apex predators through sheer refusal to quit. They are the universe's ultimate survivors. We have met humanity. The universe will never be the same. The report was transmitted. Within hours, it was being read by every Coalition commander. Within days, it was being studied in military academies. Within weeks, the phrase "human stubborn" had entered galactic vocabulary as the highest compliment a warrior could receive. 3 months later, the Vryn Empire sued for peace. They had never sued for peace before. But they had learned what the Coalition was learning. Fighting humans was possible. Defeating them was not. Talvek remained with Commander Day's regiment for another month before returning to Quillari space. On his last day, he found Day looking at the memorial for the fallen. "What will you do now?" Talvek asked. "Deploy to the next combat zone," Day said. "There's always another fight." "Are you not tired?" "Exhausted," Day admitted. "But tired soldiers can still fight. And as long as people need defending, we'll be there." "Even knowing you might die?" Day smiled. It was a human smile, full of meanings Talvek was only beginning to understand. Especially knowing that death is just a possibility. Duty is certain. We'll be afraid. We'll be tired. We'll be outnumbered. And we'll advance anyway, because that's what humans do. Talvek left Epsilon 7 with 6 eyes full of memories he would never forget. He had come to observe a primitive species prove their worth. He left having witnessed the birth of a legend. Years later, when other species asked him about humanity, Talvek would say simply, "They are terrifying, not because of what they can do, but because of what they will endure. Never underestimate a species that refuses to accept defeat, and never, ever make them your enemy." The galaxy had learned. Humans were here to stay. And the universe would be shaped by their presence for millennia to come.